Welcome to Between the Sheets, the non-judgmental podcast where we're going to cover various sexual health and wellness topics. I'm your host, Dr. Stephanie Zwonitzer. I'm a urology and sexual health nurse practitioner, and I love helping my patients and listeners discover and develop their most satisfying sexual experiences. Between the Sheets is here to normalize the conversations about sexual health and cover everything from basic anatomy to the most taboo topics and everything in between. Real talk, real pleasure, one episode at a time. So come on, let's get between the sheets. This episode is sponsored by Boston Scientific and its educational website on erectile dysfunction, edcure.com. One study estimated that more than 50% of men over the age of 40 have some degree of erectile dysfunction, which can be frustrating and confusing. Go to edcure.com to find information on erectile dysfunction and treatment options, including long-term treatment options offered by Boston Scientific. Boston Scientific does not endorse any statements or opinions expressed during this episode. Welcome back to Between the Sheets. We are going to have a great conversation again today. We have a guest with us today, Jocelyn Silva. She is a sexual empowerment and intimacy coach whose work centers around something she calls relentless authenticity. After experiencing the fallout of her own infidelity and rebuilding her life through SLAA recovery, Jocelyn dedicated herself to helping others release shame, rediscover desire, and build relationships grounded in truth. She has a background in social work and over 15 years of experience in sexual education. She's worked with thousands of people worldwide to bring confidence, joy, and self-trust back into their intimate lives. Welcome, Jocelyn. Such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. This is not, I always ask people how they got into this field because this is not something that we go to kindergarten and we're like, I'm going to grow up and be in the sex field. So what kind of brought you into this area of medicine and kind of helping people in this way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I grew up in a very conservative Catholic household. I am first generation Latina. So my dad's from Mexico. My mom is from El Salvador.
Okay.
And I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and just really heavy Catholic influence, Latin Catholic, and also a lot of shame around sexuality. And I have always been a very horny person. I grew up with so much shame, and I was 18 years old, had a boyfriend at the time, had sex for the first time. And it was so sweet. He like lit candles and incense and was just so sweet and tender with me, and we had sex, and the sex was terrible, but the experience was so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And I just suddenly had this huge revelation where I was like, who the hell told me this was bad and this was wrong? Like, this was such an incredible experience. And that just catapulted my whole journey. I left the Catholic Church and I just became obsessed with like learning about sex, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know more. I was just like so full of curiosity. So when I was 20 years old, my friend invited me to do this 6-month training program with a collective called Coochie Los Angeles,
Mm-hmm.
where we learned how to facilitate comprehensive sexual educational workshops specifically for low income queer communities of color. And I fell in love with it. I was like, oh my God, I could see myself do this for the rest of my life. And yeah, so that's when I became a sex educator. I got my bachelor's degree, got my master's degree, and a lot of ups and downs in the process, but that's really what started my path into doing what I do today. My
Yeah.
own.
Yeah, that's amazing. I had a very similar story. Grew up Catholic. Also just was like, this isn't what I think is really true about sex. And, there's so much more to it. And, I think that it's great when people can explore and figure out what they actually want and believe themselves versus just what they're told. So really love that. So talk to me about the infidelity part that kind of kickstarted, your personal journey.
Yeah, so I have had several sexual awakenings. I would say the first sexual awakening I had was when I was 6 years old, and I
Mm.
discovered that I can put the heel of my foot in between my legs, and something would feel really nice. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
Yeah.
what's my second awakening probably happened when I was 18 when I had sex for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then my third awakening happened when I was 28. So after I left the Catholic Church, I just became angry. and
Mm.
resentful with
Mhm.
God, angry with the church, angry with the world.
Yeah.
And I just said, fuck this, fuck God, fuck spirituality. All of this is bullshit. And so there I was, a girl who's, early 20s, navigating in college, right? Navigating sex. And I just engaged in a lot of really awful, reckless
Mhm.
behavior,
Mhm.
having sex with people I shouldn't be having sex with, seeking validation outside of myself. And I didn't have a moral compass, right? It's like
Yeah.
I left the church and suddenly I was left to like fend for myself because I was feeling lost.
Mhm.
So I got married when I was like 27. The marriage didn't last very long, but yeah, I got married. And, something that I became very accustomed to do at that time was to cheat on my partners.
Mm. Mhm.
And it came from a place of not knowing how to speak my truth and have really hard conversations with the people I was in relationships with.
Yeah.
And so when I was 28, I got caught by my spouse, and that just sent me into such a deep and awful suicidal depression.
Mm.
I hated myself. I hated looking at myself in the mirror. I didn't recognize myself, and my entire world literally fell apart. Like I hit an awful rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I had a professor who told me about this program called Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. And he's like, you should probably go check it out.
Mhm.
And I did. And it saved my life. And that's really when I learned like, oh, I can be a slut, but I have to be an ethical slut. And how
Mhm.
do you do that? Right.
Yeah.
Another thing that this program gave me was a relationship with God again, which
Mhm.
I'm so grateful for because I don't care what anyone thinks. This is my belief system. I don't believe that you can live a really meaningful life without some sort of guidance or direction.
Mhm. Mhm.
It doesn't have to be God. It could be anything you want it to be. But, I consider myself a very spiritual person. And so regaining that relationship and now being able to embrace my sexuality from a place of integrity versus
Mhm.
manipulation has been such a beautiful gift for me, and I think has supported me in my coaching a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I appreciate many things about that story. I think that a lot of people are raised one way and can't quite figure it out, whether it's Catholic or something else. And or they're the exact opposite and they're raised in a very open, maybe unethical sexual house. And then we become adults and we kind of try and figure out the opposite. I think so many of us go the direct opposite of how we were raised. And then you're right, there's like this settling in period, whether it's as dramatic as yours was, where you're hitting rock bottom, or
Yeah.
where you just kind of are just done with it. And it's not, you've just gotten to that point where it's not fulfilling and it's not doing what you had wanted it to, had needed it to fill that void. And then you're right. We all do like this soul searching and kind of figure out, all right, it's not one extreme or the other. I'm somewhere in the middle. My beliefs are somewhere in the middle. Maybe not the way I was raised and maybe not fully falling off the wagon, but somewhere in there, I can find my truth and I can find my sexuality, my ethical boundaries, all of those things. And it's such a beautiful awakening when you can get to that point. I had a similar story, but was married longer. I got married when I was very young, 19. We got divorced at 28, and I I just jumped right into the relationship with another person because I didn't know how to be single. And that ended up being a horrible relationship. And I got out of that and just had my whore phase and had my jump off the deep end phase. And for about 2 years, did that. And then all of a sudden, I was like, I am so unfulfilled. I am so empty. This is not what I wanted for myself. And exactly like what you said, like having sex with the wrong people, not really making conscious choices and just kind of like going with whatever. And for me, giving up alcohol was a big part of my balancing and figuring out where I wanted to go in life. For other people, it's finding someone, a therapist or somebody to talk to, right? So I really resonate with what you're sharing and I really appreciate your openness about that. When did you start doing the coaching then?
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your story too. So many gifts in sobriety. A lot of
Yes.
sobriety. Yeah. So it's kind of funny. So I knew I wanted to be a sex therapist when I was
Okay.
20, right? When I became a sex educator, I was like, I'm gonna be a sex therapist. So I got my bachelor's degree in gender and women's studies. I
Okay.
managed an adult store for 4 years and was doing that, and that was great. And then I got my master's degree in social work. And I was going to be on the path of getting my license clinic to become a licensed clinical social worker, right? But then I discovered coaching and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. So it started with my first memory was I was watching a YouTube video from this media company called The Cut.
Mhm.
Do just like fun little videos. And there was one video where this woman, her name was Cora Boyd, and she had to guess who in the lineup of people were couples. She had to like partner
Mm.
them. And she got 100% success rate. So
Wow.
she was a dating coach. And I was like, what's a dating coach? Like that's kind
Yeah.
of cool. Also, she like guessed all of these. Like that's so awesome, right?
Mhm.
Started following her journey and I just thought she was like the coolest person. I'm like, oh my God, Cora Boyd is so dope. Then in my rock bottom, my mom actually got really sick and she got pneumonia. She was in the hospital in a coma for 10 days. We all thought we were going to lose her. And throughout that process, I just had this reflection moment where I was like, okay, God, if you do whatever, if you give me my mom back, I'll do whatever you want me to do. Just please don't
Mhm.
take away my mom yet. And so my mom survived, and I thought, okay, well, now I have to keep my end of the bargain here. So I went to an astrologist and I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. And she looks at me and says, well, what do you want to do? What's like in your
Mm.
heart? And I said, I want to be a sex therapist and travel the world. She's like, okay, then that's what you have to do, but you have to do it now. And this was December 31st, 2019. And she was
Mm.
like, don't do it now. Like, no more dress rehearsals. The time is now. You have to go now. Like, she was like screaming at me. I remember. And I'm like, okay. So then I read this book called You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. And in that book, the very last thing she tells you to do is to hire a coach.
Yeah.
And so I Googled coach and I hired this woman and she said, "What do you wanna do?" And I said, "I wanna be a sex therapist and travel the world." And she says, "Well, have you ever thought of coaching?" And I'm like, "I don't really like, I know about this dating
Mhm.
coach or a boy with" which, by the way, she's my friend now, so it's kinda
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, I know, we're like friends. We're gonna hang out in a few weeks, so that'll be fun. Um, but then I said, "Well, I know that you're a coach, and I know about this other coach, but I don't know much about coaching." And she said, "Well, if you had people in front of you that needed help, do you think you'd be able to help them with sex?" I said, Of course. Are you kidding me? Like,
Mhm.
I've been an educator for 10 years at this point. I was managing a sex shop, helping people all the time." She said, "Okay, so this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna coach 4 to 6 people. You're gonna help them for 4 weeks each, and then you're gonna ask them for a review."
Mm.
So I did that, and then I hired another business coach, and I started posting on TikTok. My TikTok blew up to almost 1,000,000 followers, and that's
Wow.
my first clients, and the rest is history. And so in my heart of hearts, I believe that what I do is not just a job. I truly believe that coaching is my calling and it's
Mhm.
also my way of saying thank you to the universe for not having taken away my mother.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so beautiful, and I love that because it really is like we know deep inside of us what we're supposed to do or at least a general idea. And so to have someone help you really figure that out and examine that is amazing. I love that. So one of the things that you focus on is this relentless authenticity. And so tell me a little bit about what does that mean and how do you work with your clients with that?
Yeah. So, like I said, I have a history of reckless sexual behavior in my past from my end, right? And so the last 8 years now, I've really dedicated myself to being a woman of integrity,
Mm.
someone
Mhm.
who speaks truth, someone who's honest, someone who is integral. It is very important for me to be a woman of my word. And last year, I found myself in a deeply, deeply painful relationship
Mm.
with someone who was lost himself, I would say,
Mhm.
and someone didn't have the capacity or understanding on like wasn't very emotionally intelligent, right? So
Yeah.
it was just a very painful relationship. And I found myself having a really hard time being my authentic self
Mhm.
because I'm in a state of flight or fight
Mhm.
constantly. I'm feeling anxious. It was a very big like pull and push relationship. He was avoidant. I was anxious. Like it was very like love avoidant, love addict type of
Mhm.
dynamic.
Yeah.
And I noticed that there were these moments where I had to almost push myself. Like, when you do something that feels easy or when you do
Mhm.
something that feels challenging, but then there are moments where you do something where you literally feel like you have to like push yourself to do it. Like it's
Yeah.
like almost like this feeling of like aggression that comes out of it where you're like, fuck this, like I'm
Mhm.
done. Right? And so there was this salsa event that happened here on Tuesday nights and where I live. And I remember one night I mustered all the courage inside of me to look at him and tell him, I'm gonna go salsa dancing tonight. And he was like, okay. And I'm like, you wanna come? He's like, no. I'm like, okay, well, I'm still going. He's like, okay. Like, he didn't give a shit. But like it took so much courage for me to choose to be authentic because I had been in such a state of like feeling small in the
Mhm.
relationship. And I remember that really kind of stuck with me. So he had left to LA and I was walking back home from my yoga class one morning. And I suddenly had this moment where I thought intimacy cannot exist without authenticity. And then I
Mhm.
remembered that moment where I just like so aggressively was like, I'm going to salsa tonight. And I was like, relentless
Mhm.
authentic, like just this feeling of like, I'm going to do whatever the fuck it takes to be myself, to
Yeah.
speak my truth, to do the things that I want to do. And I don't give two fucking shits what people think about it or what is going to happen because of it. Because at the end of the day, when we choose to be authentic, especially relentlessly authentic, it's always going to be followed by a sense of inner peace
Mhm.
versus where when you abandon yourself, it's all inner chaos. And it's funny because actually I got this tattoo, which you could see it. It says,
Yeah.
reverse, but it's actually backwards.
Yeah.
So if someone looks at it like in real life, I can only see it when I brush my teeth. And I
Yeah.
got that tattooed before my tagline because I always had this idea of like, I'm going to slip and I'm going to fall, but I will be relentless about where I want to go. And so relentless authenticity is being authentic by any means necessary.
I love that. And I think you're right. I mean, I've had relationships that were authentic and were not authentic. And the ones that actually were meaningful, whether they lasted or not, but they had some meaning to them, those were the ones that were authentic and that I was more myself than I wasn't myself. And I think one of my favorite things, I'm engaged right now. One of my favorite things about my fiance is that I am 100% relentlessly authentic in this relationship. And he 100% loves me for that. And he is the same way. I 100% love him for his true self. We are completely authentic with each other. And it's amazing to me how much better we are in a relationship, in our communication, our intimacy, our goals. Just everything is so much better because we are our true selves. It's amazing. So I love that that is like your big focus and teaching point for people.
Absolutely. And it's so beautiful to hear that, Stephanie, because it's like, I would say that's the goal. Like, that's the
Mm.
dream. That's
Right.
the ultimate dream, right? Is to be able to meet someone in which you can be that way with. And honestly, intimacy cannot exist without authenticity.
Yeah.
I find it so fascinating whenever clients start working with me and they say, there's something wrong with me. Why
Hmm.
can't I feel this way? And when we start peeling back the layers, I start noticing, oh, there's some areas of your relationship where you're being dishonest,
Mm,
areas in your relationship where you're not fully being authentic.
yeah.
Therefore, there is no real intimacy. And when there's no intimacy, there's no authenticity, there's no safety,
Mm,
right?
yep.
But when you can just freely be you, speak your truth, right? And learn the skills necessary to know how to navigate emotions that come up, validating your partner's experience, learning how to regulate your own feelings, right? So you can have those
Hmm.
hard conversations. That's when you can really I think the sky's the limit from that space.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And do you think that one of the things that keeps people from being their authentic self is kind of working through their past? And whereas you and I have both gotten to this place where we accept who we have been in every phase of our life and we're happy with who we are now. And so we can be authentic. Do you find that you have to go backwards with your clients and coach them through letting go of shame, letting go of past experiences and things like that to even get to being authentic?
100%. Yeah, of course. Of course, of course. A lot of what I do with my clients is unlearning the messages that they were learned, that they were
Mhm,
taught, right? That they learned growing up. So, for example, one of the first activities I do with my clients is a very popular CBT process,
mhm,
and it's called like thoughts, feelings, actions.
'kay,
And so, what you do is you write down all of your limiting beliefs in your thoughts, how those make you feel, and what they make you do. Because at
okay,
the end of the day, all human behavior comes down to our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions.
mhm,
And through that, all of the junk comes out. Sex is a sin. Sex is bad. Sex is shameful.
mhm,
My body's ugly. I'm ugly. All these things.
mhm,
And then we think, okay. And then we look at it and we say, okay, what are these thoughts? How do they make you feel? What do they make you do? Right. And how can we switch them so that you can start to view sexuality in a different way? And that's the
mhm,
first process for them to start adopting a new belief system that is in alignment with the person that they desire to become, right?
mhm,
With a fully expressed sexually empowered individual. And that's one piece. But I do think that the other piece, and these two can both like they can both exist in somebody, but they don't have to. Some
mm,
people just have one or the other, right?
mhm,
And the second piece is, and I get this a lot, where individuals will come to me and say, I have no sexual shame. I've always been fully expressed. I don't know what's wrong, right? And usually what we uncover is it is deeply uncomfortable to talk about things that are vulnerable. It
mhm,
is deeply uncomfortable to have hard conversations with someone so close to you. And
mhm,
we are so scared of hurting our partner's feelings.
yes,
That is the biggest thing that I would say, like, yes, I help my clients with the past, but I think what really gets in the way of of their relentless authenticity is their ability to sit in the discomfort of their partner's disappointment
yeah,
or to learn how to have hard conversations and regulate their emotions through that, which, like, fuck yeah, that's hard. Are you kidding
yeah,
me? I'm still learning how to do that, you know?
right.
But I believe that the more we practice that, the better relationships and sex can be.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had a patient today of mine. He's in his 80s and he and his wife are still sexually active. He has ED, but I've treated him for that. He's good. And so he has the means to be penetrative. She is now at the point where it's very difficult for him to penetrate because she is getting tighter, drier, all the things. So, we were talking today and I just said, well, maybe, you need a little bit more prep work. Maybe you need to do this or that or try a little bit longer of the arousal phase, make sure you're using extra lube than you used to, all the things. And he said to me, he's like, as easy as it is for me to talk to you about this, it is so difficult for her and I to talk about anything intimate related because she was raised in a household where you're not affectionate. We don't talk about affection. We don't talk about intimacy, things like that. And I'm like, my goodness, this woman is in her 70s or 80s. I didn't ask, but if he's in his 80s, she's got to be up there too. And they've lived their whole life like this. And it hurt my heart for them. If you can talk to me and I've known you for a few years as your provider, how can you not talk to your spouse? You're right. I think we are so concerned about hurting those who are close to us or offending them or making them feel like, hey, I'm going to bring this up and that's telling you you're not good enough. I'm not telling you you're not good enough. I'm just saying, like, hey, I still want to have sex with you. How can we make that work where it's comfortable for both of us? Or in another situation where one person is kind of interested in exploring a certain kink or a certain activity and the other person, instead of balking at them and being like, absolutely not. Oh my God, I can't believe you're even into that. Having the conversation to say, okay, why is that sexy to you? What about that? How much of that? Like, if I'm not fully comfortable with that whole situation or that type of kink, what could we compromise on? Where can I meet you that I'm comfortable with that will also help you? Like for me, and I'm sure for you, these conversations come very easily because this is what we do. And we love sex and we love helping people have good sex. It's so sad to me that people can't have that in their relationships.
Yeah, it's sad to me too. Yeah, I know. I actually just had a Q&A on my Instagram, and there was a man who messaged me and said, what do I do? I feel like I feel like I don't know what to do. I want to explore these things and I don't know. I have a wife and I don't know what to do. And I thought, okay, well, I was like, have you talked to her? He's like, I mean, I've insinuated it once during sex. And I was like, okay, but have you like sat down with her and had a heart to heart and told her how you felt? And he goes, no. And I'm like, great, do that. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
But I just think it's funny because to so many people, it's like, it's not rocket science. It's actually incredibly simple, right? You want
Right.
something, you ask for it. But it's so funny that it's not even like in the scope of someone's what do I do? It's like you
Right.
talk to her, like, oh, I talked to her. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, okay. But yeah, it really is. It's funny. I still remember one of my first professors when I started college at 18, Dr. Kiotis. I love her so much. And I still remember she screamed at us in class. And she
Mhm.
goes, if you can't talk about sex with the person you're having sex with, then you probably shouldn't be having sex with them. And that
Yep.
always in my head where I'm like, all right, like if I can't talk about sex with you, then I don't want to have sex with you. Right. But
Yeah.
obviously not everyone is taught that. So then they have to learn the skills on how to be able to have those conversations.
Yeah. It's funny because I use that tagline all the time. I love that saying of like, if you can't talk about sex, you should just not have sex with that person. Like, you should be able to connect on that level with communication if you're going to connect with that level on your bodies physically. How do you kind of help patients with that conversation? How do they approach their partner and say, hey, I'm kind of interested or I want to talk to you about this? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so happy you asked this question because I'm actually creating a course on that right now. And Stephanie, this course is I'm so excited. Okay, so let's talk about this as a whole because this isn't just about how do I tell my wife I want more blowjobs, right?
Yeah.
Like this isn't it's not just about that, right? So let's talk about this. Okay. In order for our bodies to be receptive to sexual pleasure, they need to be in a state of full relaxation, meaning
Hmm.
our nervous systems need to be in the parasympathetic state. What creates the parasympathetic state? Calm, relaxation, peace, and in relationships, safety.
Yes.
What creates safety? Predictability,
Mm.
consistency, stability, right? Okay. When we are engaging sexually, which by the way, sex is the most vulnerable thing that we do as
Hmm.
humans, right? When we're engaging sexually with someone and suddenly there's no clarity, suddenly there's no stability, suddenly there's confusion, right? That's going to lead to anxiety and stress. And anxiety and stress are exactly the things that are going to get you out of the erotic state,
Yeah.
right? So, what I tell my couples is this: when you're having sex, think of sex as a playground. All
Okay.
right. And you're saying, here's this playground, go run wild. You can run wild as long as you are within the parameters of the playground.
Okay.
A lot of couples don't know what the parameters are. They're like,
Mm.
all right, we're like playing in this playground, but I'm not quite sure like what's okay, what's not okay. Is this okay? Is that on? And I don't know how to, they're just running around the playground confused and anxious. Now, and because they're confused and because there's no clarity, they're anxious, they're stressed out, and sex is
Hmm.
no longer enjoyable.
Right.
So, what I do is I have created a workbook called Speak Your Desires, and I
Mm.
take all of my clients through it. And it takes them through a journey from A to Z on all sexual experiences. So, we start with time of the day. We go into environment, initiating intimacy, which is the most important one, which is where a lot of people get stumped is like, how do I
Mhm.
go from like, I'm living my life to I want to have sex? Foreplay, touching, oral sex, playful, kinks, aftercare,
Mhm.
everything, right? And I actually have them write them out.
Mm.
And then I have them do a meditation where they envision themselves with their partner. And I tell them to answer the prompts as if they are teaching their partner how to give them pleasure.
Mm.
And then I have them sit face to face and have this conversation while I mediate it, though.
Yeah.
So because now what we're doing is we're setting the parameters of that playground and now there's no confusion and
Right.
there's so much clarity. And the beauty of being able to do it from A through Z is that instead of putting all this weight on this one conversation we need to have, it's like, why don't we talk about everything all at
Mhm.
once? Why don't we just lay it all out? Right.
Yeah.
And I tell my couples, like, do this once every 6 months, at the very least once a year. I mean, I would say do it every day, not like the whole workbook, but
Right,
like
right.
every day, talk about it every week. But if you must have a ritual, at least every 6 months so that you can
Mhm.
understand how you are evolving as a sexual
Yes.
person, your kinks, your
Yeah.
desires, especially as you age, they change.
Mhm.
So just keeping up with these conversations will ease a lot of that anxiety that people feel
Yeah.
because they have the clarity. And
Right.
once you keep the anxiety because you have clarity, your body is relaxed. And guess what? You are now open and receptive to sexual intimacy. So it all works together. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's how I teach my clients. And now I'm creating a course that specifically teaches women on how to express their desires.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's so important. And I love that you suggest that they do it every 6 months to a year because there are a lot of changes and not just, okay, we tried that and now I'm open to trying this because we're moving past, we're restructuring the boundaries. But it's also, you broke a hip and now is your mobility the same? You went through menopause. Now your vaginal tissues are different and things feel different. The man had prostate cancer and now he has difficulty with an erection. And so now we need to, okay, hey, I'm kind of in the mood today. You want to pop your Viagra and we can start in an hour because we got to time it with the medicine and things like that. So it's not just the relationship side of things, but medically and physiologically, a lot can change with us that changes what we want and how. I mean, there are patients that come into my clinic where we literally will like walk through different positions and try and figure out what they can still do because this patient, the one spouse had a hip replacement and a knee replacement, and this spouse has, chronic low back pain, and we have to figure out a position that they can still penetrate in and have that intimacy. And I love that you're saying, like, keep that conversation going because these things change over time. Yeah,
100%. I mean, they can literally change from day to day too.
absolutely.
Today I wanna get railed into oblivion, and tomorrow I just wanna be, like, made love to. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It just
Yeah.
it
Yeah, and phase of life too. When you have, little toddlers, you're probably doing a lot more quickies than you are anything else. And, if mom and dad end up moving in with you and you're in midlife, okay, well now my mom is down the hall. I got to figure out mentally how I handle that. And so it's these different phases of life too really affect what we're willing to do, what we're comfortable with. So there's so many factors that to have the conversation and go through it one time just is never gonna be sufficient.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
And what I think is here's the kicker, and I didn't make the rules, this is unfortunately just the way life is.
Mhm.
People say, "How do I do this without feeling awkward and uncomfortable?" And I'm like,
Mm.
"You don't."
Right.
You just embrace the discomfort and
Yep.
you million times until the discomfort goes away, literally with everything else in life, right?
Yeah.
I like to give the example to my clients. It's like, how did you feel the first day of your job? On a
Mhm.
scale of 1 to 10, how confident were you? And they usually say, oh, 1 or 2, right? Like
Mhm.
the first day. Okay, how confident do you feel in your doing your job now? Most likely they'll say, "Oh, 9, 10. Like
Mhm.
I can do my job super well now." Like, "Okay,
Yeah.
what was the difference?" And they're like, "Experience." I'm like, "Exactly."
Mhm.
Right? So the more you experience this, you just have to break the ice and keep doing it until finally you're like, "This isn't uncomfortable anymore. I can talk about
Mhm.
sex freely and be okay." You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and a lot of times I like patients to have those conversations outside of the bedroom, not at a time when you're gonna like hurry up and go have sex. Like you really want to stay away from I mean, you're gonna have some conversations in the intimate moment because things come up. But you really want to have like these deeper conversations about likes, dislikes, changes, exploration and like you said, the playground boundaries when you're not in the middle of it. I
Yeah.
really think it's important to have a safe place, have a private place. You don't want to do this in the coffee shop or something like that. You want it to be private, just the two of you. Or if you're working with a coach, the coach can be there, like you said, to help mediate. That can be very helpful. But you really want to focus on it at a time where you're both in a good mood, you're both relaxed, it's just the two of you, and you can really discuss things without it being like, well, last night you tried to do this and you didn't tell me, or, like really taking any of that out and just having the conversation with no pressure on it.
Yeah, you touched on a really great point. A lot of individuals that I work with will say that talking about sex has become deeply stressful because they only talk about it when something is wrong.
Mm,
They only talk about sex when it's been a while and they need to have sex. They're frustrated because they haven't had sex in a while. Their partner did something that they didn't like, right?
mm-hmm.
So if folks are like, well, how do I breach this subject all the time? A really great, simple way to do it is after having sex, reminiscing on what you really enjoyed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then asking yourself the question, asking your partner the question, if I have feedback for you, how would you like me to offer you that feedback? Right?
Love that.
Yeah, because some individuals will say like, "Oh, I really enjoy like right after sex." Like for example, my ex did not want feedback after sex. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Sex, tell me everything I did amazing." And then once we're like having dinner or something, you can then tell me, what you'd like me to
Mm-hmm.
work on. So I said, okay, and I had to kind of understand that that's the way he wanted to receive that. But that's really nice because now I know how to give it
Right.
versus being anxious like crap, like because if your partner's doing something you don't like and then they're trying to have sex with you, now you're super anxious because you're trying to avoid the intimacy while
Mm-hmm.
you can just have the conversation with them whenever they're available and in the way that they're receptive to listening to it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so great and so imperative to kind of moving through, these conversations and gaining that safety in your relationship too, that you can go to your partner and say, hey, I'd like to try it differently, or I'd like this, or I didn't really like that today. That didn't feel great. Because that every time you have those conversations, like you said earlier, you're going to practice 1,000 times. Every time you have those conversations, it's going to get a little easier and a little more comfortable. And especially if you guys can both be in a place where I want to improve this, right? This isn't a reflection of, oh, you did this badly. This is a reflection of, this is what would bring me more pleasure.
Mhm.
That really didn't work for me, but this maybe would. If we really just focus on bringing each other pleasure, then that really takes the pressure and the stress off of these conversations, which I think is so important.
Yeah, it's a co-creation of a sexual experience. It's like you said earlier, it's not, oh, you did something wrong.
Mhm.
It's how can we work together so that we both get the most pleasure and enjoyment out of this experience?
Yeah, absolutely. You are a breath of fresh air with so much great information. I just absolutely love this conversation. Jocelyn, how can people find you? How can they work with you?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at I am Jocelyn Silva, and my website is www.jocelynsilva.com.
Awesome. And the program that you have coming up is going to be on there. The couple
Yes.
stuff that you do and everything is on your website.
Yes. Everything is
Awesome.
there.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. So if you're driving right now, you don't have to worry about trying to jot that down. We'll put it in the show notes so you can find it later. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your knowledge on this topic.
Thank you. This was so great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was really fun. All right, everybody. Don't forget to check out reviveish.com for your health and hormone needs. If you're in Maryland, we would love to have you as a patient. And of course, as always, go have some fun between the sheets. Thank you for joining us and exploring sexual health topics here on Between the Sheets. New episodes are available every Wednesday. Please subscribe and rate our podcast so we can reach more listeners. And don't forget to tell your friends, partners, and anyone who will listen about Between the Sheets. Send any comments, questions, or stories to podcastbetweenthesheets@gmail.com. It's all one word, podcastbetweenthesheets@gmail.com. Thanks for listening and go have some fun between the sheets.